Welcome back. So, the history videos end up being a refresher for me as well as for people watching the channel. So I want to go over the evolution of the NHL rink because I myself misspoke in the video this morning about the red line that wasn't in there yet. So we're going to go ahead and go through this as a refresher for me as well as for anybody watching this too, because again, people pointed out red line wasn't there yet, and I was like, yeah, no, the red line wasn't there yet. What am I doing? Anyways, 1917-18, the first year for the National Hockey League. All you can see is the dot at center ice. Like, the ice itself is not painted, and there's no goal line. So was the puck in the net? I don't know. You wouldn't have had replays either, so I guess it's in the net, or I guess it isn't. But it's just the face-off dot at center ice. Now, the blue line gets added in 1918, 1919, as I mentioned in the video this morning. Something they got from the PCHA. It was a smart move by the PCHA. The lines weren't anywhere near as wide as they are now either. So, and the ice wasn't white, so, and they're blue lines, the ice kind of a bluish color, it would have been a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. But there was no instant replay because, yeah, but there wasn't going to be instant replay, was there? So 1926-27, the neutral zone gets widened to 60 feet. So they toyed around with it. The neutral zone got shortened a bit years later, but it stayed around 60 feet for a large portion of time. It was like 58 feet for a while there too. And then the full goal crease gets painted on the ice in 1934-35. Before that, they had like an L shape, so it wasn't the entire crease, and it was a squared off goal crease. They eventually would round it out. Now, the page where I got some of this information from, I'm going to link it in the description below. It goes into a lot more about the face-off dots. The face-off dots were everywhere. I can also explain to people, because I know for older fans, you'd remember this. There was a time where the face-off was wherever the puck left the ice. So if the puck goes over the glass and it's like right on the blue line, well, then that's where you're going to have the face-off. They only changed that in the 80s and late 80s too, I believe, where they're like, okay, we got to have these on the dots, guys. We can't just have face-offs everywhere. So the blue line gets widened to 12 inches in 1938-39. 1943-44 is widely seen as the start of the modern era. And it is because the red line gets added. And also the NHL brings in a rule. No two-line passes. This was seen as a way to increase scoring. Yep, and it did that first year. 43-44, it changed the game substantially. But the ice is still not painted. So 1946-47, they painted the inside of the goal. So basically, you'd know if the puck was in the net because that's the white spot of the ice. The rest of the ice was not painted. But it was popular. Fans really liked the fact that with that difference, and you can see the puck on the white ice, it was way easier to follow the game. So in 1949-50, the NHL decides, you know what? It is easier to see the puck on the ice, and the entire ice surface is painted white, which it still is to this day. And it's something too that, again, as fans and watching games, we just kind of take for granted. The ice is painted. Because, again, ice is technically, it's white when you see it out and you see somebody skating around in Banff on top of the lake. Oh, look at that. They're skating. Look at that, the white ice. Yeah, the ice in the NHL rinks is painted to look that color. I can't imagine how weird it would be if it wasn't painted white, too. 52-53 is where the face-off dots start to look like what we have in the NHL. There was a point where they were right in front of the net. Also a point where they lined just outside the blue line. And so they start to simplify it, which is probably for the best because the face-off circles, being as they are right now, is probably the best setup. 64-65. While some teams had been using a checkered line at center ice, not all of them were. So the NHL made it a rule that the NHL center ice line had to be checkered because black and white TVs, red and blue, kind of look the same. So for the fan watching along at home, they could tell if it was a red line because it was a broken line rather than the solid line, which was the blue lines. So when you see those checkers at center ice, yeah, why is the red line like that? There you go. 84-85, magnets replace the traditional pegs. Pegs being just the posts. So before 84-85, if you ran the net, you had a real chance to knock yourself out by running into the net. When they brought in those magnets, oh man, were they hated. Those magnets were absolutely loathed. Now, did they make the game safer? Unquestionably made the game safer when they brought in the magnetic posts, but it was so easy to knock them off. In fact, when I was doing research for this, I just put in magnetic posts, and one of the first things that showed up was a game from 84-85 where Alan Hayworth of the Washington Capitals had a hat trick against Vancouver, but should have had a fourth goal. The thing is, the net was knocked off the pegs just before the puck went into the net. So it should have been 4 goals, but it was 3, and Hayworth wasn't happy. And you could see that fans weren't happy at that point either, because it took nothing to knock those magnets off. Like, it was so much, like when I see people complaining about the net getting knocked off now, they got to do something about this. I'm thinking, yeah, they didn't watch when it was the 80s, and it was easy to knock the nets off. I swear, the puck going in the net, it felt like should just bring it right off those magnets. So 93-94, the NHL fixes the magnet problem with the plastic pegs that are used now for the nets. Again, those magnets, just reading up on it, I was like, oh, I remember that. I remember that here. That was awful. That was absolutely brutal. So while the plastic pegs, there are times where the holes in the ice that hold the pegs are, I've seen games where they're too big, and so the net's moving around too much. They got to mess around with it, pour water on it, and all this fun stuff, and wait for it to solidify and get everything all going that way. But it's much better than the magnets. Whereas a magnet on the ice and then the post, the magnets hold, right? Not so much. So 96-97, the L-shaped positioning marks are added to the face-off dots in each of the defensive ends, and it's still there now. It's something that, honestly, it's one of those things that kind of does drive me nuts. So if you're sitting at home watching the linesman lining the guys up, and if you're yelling at the TV, drop the puck, odds are, if I'm watching the game in that moment, if you just take a moment and you listen, you'll probably hear me yelling at the official as well. It does drive me crazy too. There are times where I'm like, just drop the puck. Come on. His foot's just drop the puck. But before that, of course, there was a lot of cheating. The reason you had to bring in the L positioning, or L-shaped positioning marks, is the cheating, which for some reason reminds me of Joel Otto. He wasn't the only one. He was not the only one. And honestly, if you weren't cheating in the face-off circle in the 80s and early 90s, you weren't trying. And you weren't winning either if you weren't cheating on some level. But I mean, you had guys who put their head underneath the head of the opposing player so they can't see the puck being dropped, that kind of thing. And just jumping the gun a little bit. And again, you don't have those L positionings, and you didn't have face-off violations, so hey, you could do that ad nauseum. Didn't really matter. So yeah, those being added made some sense. They're still there now. 2005, 2006, which is where we get into the era we are now, and it feels like the new modern era starts here. The neutral zone shrinks down to 50 feet. So again, it had been 60 feet in 1926-27. About 80 years later, it becomes 50. It had been 54 before that. And the idea was to have more room in the offensive zones, more room for creativity. They also toyed around with moving the nets a little further out from the boards to give players more room behind the net to get creative. The Gretzky idea, it didn't work. It just didn't work. It didn't create more offense. So I didn't put it on the board because I knew I'd mention it here. It got moved right back not too long after. The NHL realized this is a mistake. I will grant the NHL this. When they make a change to the rules or they make a change to the ice surface, in the event that doesn't have the desired effect, they're pretty good about changing things back. And also, the trapezoid gets added, so the goaltenders can't play the puck wherever they want behind the net. This is one that I'm fine with taking out if the NHL took it out tomorrow. I think that'd be great. I don't think it's as important now as it was then. And even then, I thought, I mean, and people who watched hockey back then will point out that, goalies would just come out and play defense and clear the puck. And so you had a lot of time where, whether it was Brodeur or Turco or whoever was coming out, Hasek too, they'd go out into the corner and play the puck out. And so you couldn't get any prolonged zone time. But yeah, the two-line pass was also permitted in 05-06. So while the two-line pass was introduced in 43-44, meaning if you pass the puck from your own zone past the red line to your own player, plays blown dead, the same as an offside. But when they did that, it was to create more offense. The two-line pass being permitted, meaning you're essentially taking the red line out of the game, was also seen as a way to create offense, because before that, the neutral zone trap could really suffocate the game and make it so, yeah, good luck getting a goal, good luck getting a really good shot, because you can't pass from your own zone past the red line, and it's easy for defenses to be ready and to be, you know, in good position. So the idea was, if you add the ability to pass from your own zone to the other team's blue line, you're kind of beating that trap situation. Now we're in a situation where the scoring started to drop a little bit. We'll see if it continues to drop, because it does ebb and flow. Maybe it goes back up next year. But keep an eye on things, because if we do get into a period where scoring is more of a challenge, the NHL will look for ways to open it up so it's not as much of a challenge. And I know for people who love the defensive hockey, they don't like that the NHL does that, but it definitely does. So I wanted to do this today, again, as a refresher for myself too. Mention the red line in a 1918-1919 video. Seriously? But yeah, thank you guys so much for all your support as always. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as well. And so I'll throw this in here too. If you were going to change something about the way that the NHL ranks look. Now, advertising is one thing people are going to mention a lot. But I mean more along the lines of the face-off dots, the blue line. There's been talk about, you know, do you widen the blue line because of all the offside reviews and everything. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon. And yeah, this summer, we'll probably be a lot of history videos, which I think works too, because with the team now moving into Utah, probably some new fans who may not know the history of the game as much, so I have no problem with providing all that. Thank you guys for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.